Hello. And like I was saying in one of the videos, that May was actually not even May now, it's June, was a big month for music releases for me. Well, not even just music releases, music in general. This was one of the other reasons, but it was released in May, but it's only just turned up here in New Zealand on the 10th of June. And you can see over here, Customs Declaration, sender's name Remedy. I don't know, is that the distribution company? And Stevenage. I've heard of Stevenage, and it says there, Devin, Townsend, the Moth, LT. So I pre-ordered this back in, was it March? It was sometime early this year. And kind of, after you pre-order something, you kind of, well, at least I do, kind of forget about it. And I've said before, I usually don't like pre-ordering if I can avoid it. But the thing is that this would be kind of difficult to find, perhaps, if I didn't pre-order. Now, let's see. What have we got here? Well, that's the receipt. Don't need to look at that. We have this. That's his signature. That's real. Signed by the man himself. Now, some people said that picture, which is the same, okay, this is the limited edition, so maybe it's a different cover, but I've seen other, or maybe that's got a slip case thing around it. I think that's on the front of the CD. That photo of Devin is disturbing, I've heard people say. Maybe I'm just used to what he looks like, and so it's not that, it just looks like him in black and white, He's getting old. He's got to be, he's definitely in his 50s. I think he was born in 1975. No. Actually, I'll have a look here, we'll see. Sometime in the 70s. I'm pretty sure he's like a generation before me. So I'm trying to look at this while I talk. He was born in 1972, so he's 54. Anyway, this was part of the special edition, what do you want to call it, package, as you get a signed Devin Townsend photo, or whatever else might call. Now, when I did the Casualties of Cool pre-order back 12 years ago, I think it was, and that was crowdfunded, that one, I was supposed to get a signed thing with that, but I never got it. I remember, and I always kind of, bummed me out. But anyway, we got that this time. It's the only thing I've ever had signed by the man. I have seen him live in concert, but I didn't get anything signed when I saw him. Now let's see if I can open this. This is wrapped with plastic. Now I haven't listened to anything off this album yet. So I'm going to make this first part of the video looking at the product, and then I'll listen to it, and maybe in a couple of days I will make the second part about my feelings. I haven't listened to anything. I've purposely avoided the singles and everything, is because I wanted to kind of come into it fresh. And also, the way that he's talked about this, it sounds like it's kind of like it's not the kind of thing that would be served well by listening to individual songs. Or maybe that's not the right way to say it, but it's better to listen to as a whole. So here we have, this has got this kind of cardboard on the outside, the Moth, Devin Townsend. On the back we have the track listing, 2 discs. Disc 1, the Moth, disc 2, the Moth Afterlife, the Afterlife. And this is the name of the tracks, from semi-prologue through to We Don't Deserve Dogs. I have read reviews, though, of this. Not a lot of reviews, but I was just kind of genuinely interested. And there we go. So, yes, I was right. That is the kind of the overall cover. Is that disturbing? So you can see the design. It's kind of like the same photo, and it's kind of got this like kind of smoky effect around the edge. I don't know what you would call that, kind of cloudy, smoky, almost kind of somewhat like an artifact. It's like kind of damaged or something, the way they've tried to present it. Again, the same as the slipcase thing. Then we open it out. We've got 3 paintings. Are these original paintings? Or are these paintings, like old paintings done by some artists? I don't recognize any of them. Okay, that might be a little bit graphic in some ways. 2 guys fighting with themselves. A guy punching himself in the face made up of other human bodies. And we got this one, which is like a, I don't know, an interdimensional being offering their hand to this guy. And he's in the background, you got these people on poles. And then the last one. Now, we got disc, I guess this is disc 1 in here. The moth, can you see that? There's a moth on it. See, it's kind of like, yeah. See. I assume that's just the regular moth, and then the other one will be disc 2, which is, what did they say? Can't remember the name of it. We'll see what it says on it. The afterlife. Now, from my understanding is that it's the same, but it's recorded just vocally, maybe? Like the first one is the full orchestra and band and all the... Anyway, I'll listen to it and tell you after I've listened. And then the booklet's in the middle here, which is kind of hard to get out because it's... Here we go, it comes out that way or that way. God. Man, these things are such a pain in the ass to get anything out of. These bloody cardboard digipack, digi-sleeve things. So it's a booklet. What's that? That is Thai? Maybe? A lot of those kind of Southeast Asian languages look somewhat similar, like Thai, Khmer, and Laotian. The script looks a bit similar. And then I guess Burmese, but Burmese I can usually tell the difference because it's more rounded. And then they look kind of similar to the Indian scripts like Hindi, and though they usually have lines across the top. Anyway, I don't know what it says. It's a little bit kind of crinkled. You can see there on the back. You can see there's a kind of, I don't know what's caused that, but oh well. This is the lyrics. Now you can see some Chinese there because I know, I'm not sure if it's that part, but I do know somewhere on the album, Lin Wu from the band O, who I've talked about before. She's a guest vocalist and she sings in Chinese. So maybe that's her part. O are a band, their last album was produced by Devin Townsend, so there's kind of a connection there. And there's some more Chinese here. And over here. So maybe she's throughout. I think also Annika, is that how I pronounce her name? Annika van Giersbergen. She is. So here we got the players or the features. So we got Devin Townsend on vocals, guitar, synths, programming. Lin Wu on vocals. Anik van Gisbergen, who he's worked with a lot. Since Addicted, she's featured on a number of his albums. She was on Empath. She was on Z2. Maybe Deconstruction. Anyway, she's popped in and out of his featuring on his albums. Then we've got Darby Todd, Mike Keneally. He works with Mike Keneally a lot. James Leach, Josh Searles, Morgan Argan. He's worked with him before. Aman Koshla. And I haven't heard of some of these people. What I noticed with him is that he kind of finds musicians and then does a bunch of projects with them and then kind of stops working with them, and then you kind of never see them again. Like Mike St. John. His name used to pop up a lot during that DTP era, and then I think even in the Empath era. And then there was those DTB players like Dave Young and Ryan RVP and Beeve, I can't remember his real name. They popped up a lot, and on the earlier stuff, like the Devin Townsend band stuff, but before the project, like Accelerated Evolution. And anyway, my point is that he'll work with someone a lot, and you'll see their name pop up, all over the place for a couple of albums, and then they just kind of go away, and then he never works with them again. Gene Hoglan's a good example of that, where Gene Hoglan was involved in so many of his kind of 90s, early 2000s era projects. Obviously with Strapping Young Lad, but not just Strapping Young Lad, other stuff as well. And then they just stopped working together. And they haven't worked together since. Like, other than like the odd concert, maybe Gene Hoglan's come out and played a few songs. But he's kind of like that. He seems to kind of, want to move on. Though Mike Keneally is an example of someone he's worked with quite extensively, as the same for Aneka. It's Addicted came out in 2010, so that's kind of like 16 years now they've been working together in one way or another. And we see here okay, that's interesting. Lin Wu recorded at Dongxi Studios, which is in China, so she recorded remotely. And the engineer was Anthony Vanacore, and he is the drummer in O, the band that Lin Wu usually sings for. So this was recorded in the Netherlands. He used the North Netherlands Orchestra. Just see if there's any other names in that I recognize. No. And he... beyond that, I can't say much because I haven't listened to it. I think it's very different to what he's done previously. It's much more kind of orchestral. Some people say it's almost like the soundtrack to a movie. Like I said, the reviews have been very mixed. I've seen some people just think it's not good. It's kind of too unwieldy. It's too kind of broad and large. There's too much happening to really kind of absorb it. I heard someone say they listened through to it, they loved it, but they never need to hear it again, which is an interesting kind of take on something, which I think I felt that way with movies before, where you see a movie. I guess movies and music are different, aren't they? Because you can listen to songs a million times. You wouldn't do that with a movie necessarily, unless you're kind of... Kids do that sometimes, don't they? I mean, my little sister was obsessed with the Disney Beauty and the Beast movie when she was a kid. She used to watch it every day. But to listen to something and to enjoy it and go, oh, that was great. And I will never hear that again. So over here, he's represented by Northern Music. Andy Farrow. Andy Farrow is also the manager of Opeth. So kind of interesting that they share a manager, Devin Townsend and Opeth. I see over here Steve Vai is mentioned. Steve Vai, what is he? I didn't see his name over here. Did I see Steve Vai? Does Steve Vai feature on this somewhere? Steve Vai. No, I'm not seeing any Steve Vai. Why was his name mentioned over here? It says published by Steve Vai, Sci-Fi Music. Oh, I guess I'll listen and be able to hear. Interesting is that, speaking of Steve Vai, did a guest solo on Empath on the very last song. Huge 25-minute song. And the first time I heard that song, without even knowing it, I heard the solo and I went, that's a Steve Vai solo. And I didn't know, I hadn't read the media or anything saying, oh, Steve Vai does a guest spot on this. I went into the album completely like this one, kind of without any kind of prior knowledge. And as soon as I heard the solo, Steve Vai's kind of tone and his, note choice, maybe you'd call it, is so recognizable that I immediately thought that's Steve Vai. And of course, with the knowledge that Devin and Steve Vai have worked together before. They did an album together in the 90s. But So it wasn't a completely out of nowhere guest spot, but at the same time, yeah. Oh, look, speak of the man, Mike St. John. So he's working for Heavy Devi. Heavy Devi Records is Ben Searles, Mike St. John, Naaman McKinley, Francis Nartok, and Rain Townsend. Rain Townsend is Devin's son, who feels just like yesterday he was like talking about him as like a baby, which would have been back in like the Ziltoid era, 2000, what was that, 2008? I'm pretty sure Rain's about 18, but 18, 19, 20 now. Maybe even older than that. Anyway, but now he's like an adult, and he's helping his dad work at his dad's record company. Now this is the thank yous. His endorsements. And there he's talking about what the Moth, the afterlife is. And he says here, the Moth is big. It's really big, really big. So, I was saying some people say it's unwieldy, so maybe that's, you can take basically any element of the recording and I feel it stands alone. The whole thing together, especially when I feel the levels are all at their proper volumes, can feel like a soundtrack to a nervous breakdown. And there they are performing it, because they performed it live in the Netherlands last year, I think. It was like this big thing. It was a one-off thing. Anyway, I need to listen to it and kind of get a full grasp of it. And then I'll come back and give my feelings on it. This isn't a new CD, obviously, so sorry about that. But anyway, I'll be back. With the magic of technology, I'll be back in about 1 second. And back. After what, probably about a week. That was, but I've listened through to it probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 times. Not always super focused, but a couple of the times I was quite focused and listening intently. Kind of what I expected it to be honest. It's almost like a movie soundtrack, or not even a movie soundtrack, like a musical or something, a Broadway show. I absolutely wouldn't recommend it as a starting point for anyone looking at Devin Townsend's work. I guess you can hear my reaction. I wouldn't say I didn't like it, but I wouldn't say it's something I'd be clamoring to listen to a lot. It's quite hard work. It's too long. It's too long, in my opinion. The second half drags. Yes, there's an intermission in the middle there. And I really like the first kind of few bits. Semi-prologue especially is kind of throughout it. There's some very beautiful parts and really interesting parts. Like there's this flute used in semi-prologue, and then covered by causes is a great part of it, which is kind of where you hear a lot of the voice of Annika and Lin, the Chinese singer from O. They're a big part of that, and they feature kind of off and on through the album, especially Annika, however you pronounce your name. But it does kind of meander and I don't know, a little bit lacks direction in some parts, but when you say lacks direction, I don't know the direction he was going for, so I'm just saying that from my point of view. Can't really say it was directionless. Well, I don't actually know what his intended direction was. Maybe that's whatever that feeling I have is what he was intending. I don't know. There are some parts of it that are a little bit cheesy. Well, his work has always got an element of cheese to it, but Like if you watch the video, that song there, Home at Night, there's a video for that on YouTube. He released as a kind of a single, I think, before the album was released. And it's him singing in a theater, like him on stage, and then or another version of himself in the audience watching it. Kind of what I took it to mean, the one on stage was kind of like a part of his personality that is often shown, and it is that kind of cringy, over the top part, whereas him in the audience, the way he kind of presented himself and the way that like his facial expressions when he was watching it looked a lot more normal. Like imagine if I'd met him on the street, what he would, just like a normal human. And maybe that's what he was going for. And that song, Home at Night, it's kind of got a repeated refrain throughout of I'll be home at night. I don't know who he's singing that to. Almost like I imagine it to mean like he's singing it to a family or a kid or something, like, or his wife. Now, I'm sure there's a deep story behind this and a kind of a narrative and a coherent concept, but I know in the very kind of general terms, it's about the Moth is meant to be about metamorphosis and change, and I can't remember. I think there's something here I read before that have I closed it? That kind of in a succinct way explains it. It says, what began as a distant vision became reality, blah, blah, blah. Through its soaring arrangements and intimate moments, the work explores self-acceptance, surrender, and the courage to face discomfort without turning away. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's truly being afraid but facing it anyway. And on the other side, a new type of forgiveness of ourselves. This sounds very kind of pablum, like stuff something you'd read on a self-help book. And on the other side, a new type of forgiveness of ourselves and of others. It is not a reinvention of Devin Townsend so much as a convergence, a decade of craft and a lifetime of musical worlds finally speaking in the same room. And he's, I don't know, without going too much into all that, like whenever, I'd say kind of since the end of Strapping Young Lad, and where he kind of went away for a little while and then came back with Ziltoid, and then he came back with a Devin Townsend project. I'd say since then, and then especially in those albums after, like Transcendence and Epicloud and was it Z2, and then especially into Empath, he talked a lot about this kind of stuff. Kind of seemed to be doing a lot of kind of soul searching and I guess a lot of people do that. Carl Jung says that when a man gets to be, he uses a very specific age, I think it's 43. When a man gets to 43, there are two divergences. He can either continue in his, what would you call it? In his blinkered, blinded, kind of just living life as he was before, or he can have a kind of spiritual awakening, to different degrees, and kind of start exploring the shadow and all that stuff, psychoanalysis and I guess a lot of kind of self-work, self-referential, finding out who you really are and how you got to where you are and all the things that happened that made you that person and made you maybe the person you don't want to be, or aspects of yourself you don't want to be. You see this throughout, like I said, self-help literature and therapy speak and stuff like that. And a lot of it is just kind of like you get a bit numb to it because it is very repetitive and I don't know, it seems like kind of very surface level sometimes. But if you read Carl Jung, he's actually, well, I think, a very interesting writer. And what would you call him? He's not a philosopher. I think he's like he was a psychologist, psychiatrist, but I think he's much more than that. And so at that age, which he was, he's like I said, he would have been about that age when this all started in the 2010s. Maybe he was going through that, and he's still going through it now. And that's why so much of his work seems to kind of reference back to that kind of stuff. Like if you think empath, light work, even some of the themes on Power Nerd, snuggles and puzzles, and then this. And I haven't even really delved that deep into the lyrics on this. I kind of fleetingly was reading bits and pieces, but I haven't listened through it while reading the lyrics. And like I said, I haven't in depth listened to him talk about the concept or the deeper theme. But just musically, I'd say that it's kind of like I said, I think on the first half of this, I was saying I had heard someone say that they listened through to it once and they loved or they liked it or loved it, but that was enough. I can kind of understand that. I listened to it through more than once, but it's not as though I went through that and didn't enjoy it. There were some very enjoyable parts, but there were also a lot of parts that kind of just went past me, and I wouldn't be able to recall them if you asked me to, like what happened there musically or vocally or anything else. There's a lot of kind of choirs, and it's basically an orchestral, choral soundtrack type piece. Very minimal guitars. There is some guitars and drums, but in no way a typical rock metal song structure used, and so in that aspect, I can understand why some people didn't enjoy it. But like I said, it's not as though I've read some people saying like, well, this is a total departure. This is so what's the word, brave and all this. I don't agree with that. He's always been towards this direction. You can hear it coming through in his music more and more. If you listen to Empath, you hear a lot of the stuff that would go on to be there. So it's like, for me, it wasn't surprising or it isn't unexpected at all. And also, he's been talking about it for years. I don't know how long he's been talking. It feels like he's been talking about the moth and the concept of the moth for a good 10 years. So yeah, it's not surprising at all. I was just maybe expecting or hoping for something a little bit more experimental, whereas it's kind of just more straightforward. Like I said, orchestral, choral, vocal type. So there's some bits and pieces that are interesting and different, but I feel he doesn't really push himself as much in that direction anymore. If that makes sense. Well, it makes sense to me. So yeah, I know that's kind of I haven't really said anything definitive. I'd say if you are a Devin Townsend fan, I'd say if you liked Empath, and maybe if you liked Ghost, nothing this even sounds like Ghost, but Ghost is a little bit quieter and it's not relying on the heavy metal aspects. They're really the only two that I would really. I guess Puzzles and Snuggles maybe, because they kind of got those long meandering songs as well, especially Puzzles. Then I'd say give it a listen. If you've like I said, if you've never listened to him before, I wouldn't recommend this as a starting place. I don't even know what kind of music person would enjoy this, like progressive rock. Not really. I guess maybe, but I don't know. So yeah, it sounds like I'm a little bit wishy-washy on it, doesn't it? I'm glad I own it because, like I've said before about his stuff, is that some of his work is so important in my musical life, the evolution of music I've liked and stuff I listened to on the way and stuff that stuck with me. And I always kind of go back to that album, Ocean Machine, especially, but also I guess to a lesser extent, Terrier and Ghost, but especially Ocean Machine. And so it's like he created an album that I love so much that I kind of continue to want to listen to what he's making, even though he hasn't really made anything like Ocean Machine for a while. But also then a lot of his newer stuff I listen to, and it takes me a while, but then I start to really enjoy it, and then I regret not owning it physically. And he's at the level where he's not the kind of artist where you can just go and find his CDs easily in a shop. It's kind of you buy it upon release or soon thereafter, or it becomes, harder to find, at least in New Zealand. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll leave it there. I guess that was kind of longish in multiple parts, but thank you for watching.